Today I'm going to be talking about how to sound design like a pro. You ever wonder what separates professional movies and amateur movies? A lot of it is the sound. When you mute the sound in a horror movie, it no longer becomes scary. Sound is where the emotions lie. Sound is how you build the world of your story. And there are so much that goes into sound design than you actually think. Recently, I did a few projects at USC Film School, and we had state-of-the-art sound facilities and professors teach us what all that goes into these big Hollywood movies. And what I learned is what I'm gonna share with you today. Number one thing is that production sound, the sound we record on set, is so important. It's the most important thing because you gotta get clean audio before you start trying to tweak it in post. Just like how you should shoot your film as good as possible before you color grade, right? So to get good audio, make sure you get the mic as close to your subject as possible. And also watching out for the levels, make sure it doesn't peak, or also echoes in the location, putting sound dampening things to cut the echoes, really important things. A lot of softwares can do sound design. The ones they use at USC and all professional film sets are Pro Tools, but you can also use DaVinci Resolve, Premiere, Final Cut, iMovie, anything. So before you getting into it, you gotta keep everything organized because you're gonna be getting so many sound effects, so many different tracks. Keeping everything organized is so important. Building out a file structure, I might talk about that in another video, but just making sure everything is, where they are. So to mix the audio, your production sound where they're talking and dialogue, that's the first thing you start editing, right? So making sure those are mono tracks because it's coming from a single source, right? So setting that track to mono and adjusting levels to making sure they're not peaking or not too quiet and blending them, right? So doing the crossfades on the audio so you don't hear that jump and clip between every audio track of spoken dialogue. Also, there's a lot of little sounds like the lip smacking, for example, or the boom pole accidentally bumps a little bit. These little audio go through the whole entire thing and clean it up. And also sound design comes after you picture lock. So making sure you're done editing so you're not moving so many things around at once. So once you're done editing, that's when you do sound design. There's a lot of places where you can find the ambient sounds, the Foley sounds, all the sound effects. The one I use is Epidemic Sound, link down below. But there's also freesound.com and YouTube where you can download stuff. So just making sure you don't get like copyrighted music. That's why I really recommend Epidemic Sound. Though they're not sponsoring, I've been using them forever. And that's where I get all my music as well. All right, so after you deal with all the production sound and you get your sound library ready, you're gonna start putting in background sounds. So that is the sound of the environment. Usually you want like 3 layers of that. If you're, more professional, maybe more. But let's say you're in a forest, right? You want a layer of the wind, trees, birds, river nearby, little animals, like tons of different layers, and making sure these tracks are all set to stereo. Also, it's a good idea to color code all these different types of sound so you know exactly what sound you're playing around with. And that's also keeping your timeline organized, having like 20, 30 different tracks. Make sure exactly you know what they are. So the next thing you want to add is sound effects, and this is going to be mono as well because it's coming from one source, and this include footstep sounds you might have, or animal sounds in the distance depending on where you are. It could be some of the action movements of the character. He puts down a phone, right? You want a phone sound putting down, opening of a door. You want to definitely layer some sounds to create interesting and creative ways of having the sound happen, right? Having a celery crunch is kind of like a punch and breaking the bone. Yeah, and it's really important to really get creative and just have a fun time because sound design is supposed to be fun. And making sure throughout all this, there's an arc, right? So it's not like loud, tons of sound the whole time. It's like a lot of intense, slow down, intense, slow down. That's how you get the audience engaged the whole time. So after that, you want to do a Foley session, and that is where you record the sound effects yourself. So a lot of sounds you might not be able to find, like very niche audio that you can't find on the sound libraries. And you can see a lot of fun videos of them doing side by side, like if they're running to record their footsteps. So what I did for my film at USC is we did a cloth pass where we used a fabric. So every time the character turns, it sits down, there's that sound of the fabric moving. And that's quite important, right? So your goal is to every single sound you hear or you see on screen, it should be heard. It should be designed in. It should not be just the production audio. So after that, you want to do ADR if you need to. So it's additional dialogue recording. And it's like if the actor, his voice wasn't captured properly on set, you can come in and have him redo the lines, but making sure his mouth matches the way his mouth look on camera. And the next thing is music. Music is super important. It brings a lot of emotions to it. Some people prefer minimal music. Some people prefer a ton of music. It just depends on what the story is, depends on the project, right? And there's two ways of getting music. One is the royalty-free method, finding music that already exists, getting clearance for that, or finding them on like a Epidemic Sound or a sound library. Second thing to do is getting a composer. Working with a composer is actually really fun. You would have a lot of temp tracks and you would work with a composer on developing your own version of the temp tracks, or developing an original, like a completely original thing. But what I do a lot of times is I have a temp track underneath all my tracks just to make sure I know exactly what beat the music comes in and how that music flows. And a lot of that comes from even before filming, before the camera rolls. You kind of have an idea of what feeling you want to get. What are some similar movies that have those feelings? So I think that's really helpful for getting a composer. And finding composers are not as hard as you think. You can go on Fiverr, maybe. You can go to music schools to find composers. There's tons and tons of talented people eager for work. So then after you get everything situated, then is the sound mixing process, balancing everything, making sure nothing peaks, the music isn't overpowering the dialogue, balancing EQ. So if it's something that happens outside, let's say, of this room, it's a dog barking in the distance, that EQ is going to be designed a little different than if someone's right next to me, right? So really understanding where the sound is coming from, having the pans as well, like, oh, the audio starts from here and then goes this way. And a lot of this is, you really design it based on the story. If you guys want to see the World War II movie I directed that I used the sound design tips from this video to sound design, then check out this video right here, and I'll catch you guys there.